She was found face down in the water, her body half submerged in a shallow creek under a pale moon. Her skin had lost all warmth, her hair tangled with mud and weeds. No visible injuries. No immediate signs of struggle. But her eyes, glassy and wide open, told a different story. One of fear. One of finality. 3 weeks earlier, Noor Lim had stopped posting. No photos. No captions. No trace. Before that, she'd built a following on the curated image of a perfect life. Luxury hotels, runways, sunlit balconies in faraway cities. But the illusion unraveled in silence. Her final message was chilling in its simplicity: if anything happens, look under the mattress. She had left Singapore chasing something better. The chance to be seen. To be more. A modeling contract led her to Doha, then to Alabama, a shift no one could explain. She had no ties there. Just a leased home hidden in the woods, far from everything familiar. Neighbors saw little. A man came and went, always alone, never introduced. Foreign plates. No license traced. The discovery of her body set off an investigation riddled with dead ends. But under the mattress, just as she said, was a leather-bound diary. Ink smeared. Pages torn. Names underlined. Locations noted. At the center, Khalid Al-Manur. A name rarely heard publicly, but whispered with weight in private circles. A billionaire from Qatar, known for his power, his reach, and his silence. Noor's story was never just about love. It was about power, control, and the suffocating grip of promises wrapped in gold. Her photos once showed a woman in control. But the silence between the snapshots held a darker truth. She wasn't just kept in that house, she was isolated, erased piece by piece. Detective Sarah Whitmore knew something was off the moment the case came across her desk. It was too neat. Too staged. No signs of panic. Just the kind of emptiness that takes planning. What disturbed her most wasn't what she found, it was what she couldn't. A trail of documents that led nowhere. A lease signed by a company that didn't exist. A phone wiped clean, save for one last audio file. In it, Noor's voice was quiet. Controlled. But in the background, there was another voice. And a threat. There were no charges. No public scandal. Just a body, a diary, and a powerful man who vanished from the edges of a case that never officially closed. Noor had grown up dreaming of more. She got it, but not the way she imagined. In chasing freedom, she found the cage was gilded, and escape wasn't easy. The flowers left at her grave came from strangers who only knew her filtered smile, not the fear behind it. Some stories aren't about heroes. They're about those who saw the danger too late, and the ones who never got the chance to speak louder than a whisper. The money had been moving long before Noor ever set foot in Alabama. Behind the scenes, behind the smiles, the story was already writing itself, quietly, methodically. And then there was the mansion. An old, white-columned house deep in the Alabama countryside, as if forgotten by time. No listed residence. Owned by a trust impossible to trace. But it was lived in, weekly maintenance, lights that flickered on at strange hours, a security system routed through servers outside the country. That's where Noor had gone most weekends. That's where she was last seen, captured by a grainy security camera, walking through the side entrance alone. She had followed a man, someone who promised opportunity and answers. Instead, she disappeared. And when police started digging, the life she built unraveled quickly. Love, lies, influence, all tangled into something more deliberate than a tragedy. Before we dive any deeper, I just want to take a moment to thank you for watching and supporting our videos. I've noticed that many of you are enjoying the content but haven't subscribed yet. If you like what we do, don't hesitate to hit that subscribe button. It helps us more than you think. Thank you so much, and now let's get back to the story. 3 days after Noor's body was recovered, forensic teams began combing through her home. It was spotless. Not in the comforting way, but in a way that felt scrubbed of life, too clean, too careful. Hidden in a hollowed-out section of her closet frame, they found a second phone. No billing history, no SIM, no cloud sync. Just a single memory card, encrypted. It took nearly a week to access it. Inside were over 40 recordings. Snippets of conversations, ambient sounds, voice memos. The earliest was dated 5 months before her death. In it, Noor's voice was barely above a whisper, as if she were hiding. She said a name. Then paused. Then, he's watching everything. Even this. One of the final recordings was from 2 weeks before she vanished. A man's voice, muffled, deliberate, foreign, was arguing with her. He said she'd broken the rules. That papers and promises were not the same. That she wasn't allowed to reach out. The clip ends with a door slamming and Noor crying. Detective Sarah Whitmore listened to every second. She built a timeline that refused to make sense. Then came the gas station footage. Noor, just after 11 p.m., wearing a hoodie, clutching a tote, glancing over her shoulder. She bought water with cash. 10 minutes later, a black SUV arrived. The driver never got out. He just waited. That same SUV had been seen before, near the mansion. Registered to a diplomatic fleet, connected to a company owned by Khalid al-Mansour. He denied everything. Claimed he hadn't seen Noor in weeks. Said she was unstable. Said others might have wanted her harmed. Jealous exes. Imagine threats. He gave the police his travel records. He was in Alabama the night she died. What he didn't explain was how his name appeared in a private WhatsApp conversation Noor forwarded to a lawyer in New York just days before she vanished. She'd used an alias. She'd asked for help breaking a contract. She mentioned threats. Control. Coercion. She was ready to speak, ready to expose what was behind the silence. Ariana, Noor's closest friend, shared something she hadn't before. Months earlier, Noor sent her a late-night voice note. Her voice shaking. She said she couldn't sleep. That she heard footsteps at night. That sometimes there were headlights parked outside her home, far enough to hide the face inside. Then came the inconsistencies. Khalid said he hadn't contacted her since early October. But messages traced from a burner number told a different story. On October 28, 4 days before her death, he messaged her, "We need to talk. One last time." Detective Whitmore was pulling at threads that led through layers of privilege and shadowed power. She filed for subpoenas, but diplomatic ties slowed everything. From Doha came word that Khalid was cooperating, but no restrictions were placed on him. No one stopped him from leaving. Then, quietly, a breakthrough. Noor's mother flew in from Singapore. She carried with her a sealed envelope, the only item from Noor's luggage she hadn't dared open. Inside were dozens of printed photographs. Smiling portraits. Travel snapshots. But tucked between them were 4 Polaroids, grainy, time-stamped, raw. A man stepping out of the black SUV. A driveway. A glimpse of that white columned house. Noor, standing nearby. Her arms folded. Her face turned. She wasn't smiling. And she didn't look safe. The change came not with a dramatic arrest or a press conference. It came from a lab on the outskirts of Montgomery, on a quiet, rainy morning. A single red scarf, found near the creek, partially buried. Her favorite color. Torn at the edge. Almost discarded. Initial tests found skin cells on the knot. The DNA wasn't Khalid's. It belonged to someone else, a man listed under a false name, employed as a private security consultant. One of the few individuals with regular access to the properties tied to Khalid's American holdings. Noor didn't vanish in a moment of confusion. She disappeared into something constructed, something precise. And in the silence that followed, only fragments remained. But each of those fragments, her voice, her photos, her scarf, spoke more loudly than anyone expected. His real name was Samir Jaber. You wouldn't find it on any payroll, not officially. But he was always there, in the background of almost every photo Noor had taken in Doha. Never too close, never too far. Always watching. Samir wasn't just a driver. Though that's what he was called, Khalid's personal driver. But the phone records painted a different picture. Over 30 calls exchanged between Khalid's number and a burner phone tied to Samir in the 2 weeks before Noor's death. The final call came just 20 minutes after Noor was seen on gas station surveillance. Footage from that same night, previously labeled too grainy to be useful, was run through enhanced imaging software. A figure came into view, tall, broad shoulders, gloved hands. Walking toward the back entrance of Noor's apartment complex. 10:07 p.m. Noor's body would be found the next morning, just after 6. Meanwhile, behind closed doors in Doha, a separate investigation had begun, unannounced, unshared. But secrets rarely stay buried. Leaked communications between Khalid and his wife, Yasmin al-Mansour, were intercepted by a private intelligence firm monitoring compliance for business operations. One message, dated 9 days before Noor vanished, read, "She's embarrassing you. You said this would end months ago." Khalid replied, "It will. I've asked him to handle it quietly. Nothing dramatic." Another message followed, "You're being watched." And this before she becomes a problem. It was never supposed to end the way it did. She wasn't meant to die, just to be frightened. Silenced. Erased. But something had gone wrong. Someone had gone too far. Back in Montgomery, Noor's mother sat across from Detective Whitmore, clutching her daughter's diary. The same one found under the mattress, worn and fragile from being read too many times. She didn't read all of it, just the final entry. If anything happens to me, Noor had written, please know it wasn't an accident. I've been careful. I've written everything down. I think he knows. I don't know who I can trust anymore. But I don't want to disappear quietly. I want someone to know I was here. I want someone to ask questions. Her mother's voice shook. I am so tired of being afraid. Whitmore stared at the floor. The outlines were forming. This wasn't some tragic spiral or a young woman in over her head. It was a plan, precise, deliberate. Carried out by men who believed they were untouchable. Distance, money, immunity, shields that let them move unseen. But Noor had left a trail. And now it was burning. Justice came, but not the kind that offered peace. 3 days after the DNA results were finalized, U.S. Marshals, escorted by federal agents, detained Khalid al-Mannour at a private airstrip outside Atlanta. He was boarding a jet bound for Zurich. He didn't fight. He didn't speak. He stepped out of the car, adjusted his cufflinks, and walked to the agents like he knew this moment would come. Within 24 hours, he was free. A sealed packet had arrived from Washington. Diplomatic immunity. Loopholes etched into international agreements signed decades ago. Khalid wasn't just a wealthy businessman, he was listed as an economic advisor to a Qatari embassy program. And with that title came protection. The headlines hit fast. Qatari tycoon walks free and models death immunity over accountability. Justice delayed. Justice denied. But Samir Jaber had no such shield. In a quiet federal courtroom, without cameras or crowds, he confessed. No lawyer. No plea bargain. Just the truth. I was told to scare her. Not kill her. I just wanted her to feel it, not end it. He detailed the messages, the instructions, the payout. Paid in cash. Sent to follow her. To remind her who was in control. Khalid, he said, had been terrified of exposure. Noor had threatened to release recordings. She'd spoken to someone in the media. That night, he waited outside her building. She ran. She slipped. He panicked. Dragged her to the creek. Left her. The prosecution called it manslaughter, no intent, just recklessness. But for Noor's mother, that word meant nothing. She wasn't a mistake, she said in court. She was my daughter. And they silenced her. In Singapore, her death rippled through the country like a wound. Vigils lit up the streets. Young women wore red scarves. Her name trended across the globe, #Justice for Noor. At Raffles Place, nearly 10,000 people gathered. Signs read, her fear was real, one life, no silence. An open letter, signed by over 100 international human rights organizations, called for a re-examination of diplomatic immunity laws. Debates erupted in parliaments from Southeast Asia to Europe. But laws move slowly. And power rarely says sorry. The United Nations released a statement demanding ethical accountability for individuals protected by foreign status. Qatar issued a short condolence. Khalid returned home, to a fortified estate. He hasn't been seen in public since. But Noor's voice didn't fade. Her mother published her diary, along with selected audio from Noor's recordings. Every cent went to the Noor Lim Foundation, a non-profit supporting women trying to escape coercive, abusive relationships, especially those under powerful influence. In its first year, the foundation helped more than 400 women in 6 countries find legal aid, safe shelter, and counseling. Noor hadn't disappeared quietly. She left a record. She left a voice. And even though justice didn't come the way it should have, her story refused to be buried. Noor's story became more than a tragedy, it became a wound that never fully closed. Her name, once spoken in whispers, became something sharper, heavier. A symbol. But beneath the headlines and public outrage, the case remains unresolved, a crack in the foundation of global justice. A life taken too soon. A system too slow, too compromised, to answer for it. Some called it a mistake. Others, a calculated decision. But the truth lives in the shadows, behind closed doors, sealed files, and silence bought with power. Was it an accident that spiraled out of control, or was Noor silenced because she refused to stay quiet, because she threatened to reveal what others had spent years hiding? Was she just another name drawn into the orbit of men with too much to lose? Her story is not just a sequence of events. It's a warning. About control. About silence. About how long the world is willing to look the other way, until it's too late. Was justice truly served? Or was this something deeper, darker, buried under the weight of immunity and influence? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more true crime stories. Stay alert. Stay sharp. Stay aware.